Hey everyone, thanks for jumping on my Q&A. I'm just going to invite Rowan. We will be talking about the topic at the moment is the carnivore diet. So that seems to be the latest craze now. Keto and paleo if we've got time. So thanks for tuning in, and hopefully we will be able to debunk a lot of all your questions and stuff that you've been asking about this. How's
Hello.
it, Weenie?
Hello. How's it?
Good, and you?
I'm fine. How are
Seems like
you?
good. Seems like the other day we just
I
did this, eh?
was just thinking the same thing.
So cool. So let's not
Yes.
beat around too much. So obviously today we're going to chat about the latest thing that's been doing the rounds. Well, for a while now, is the carnivore diet. So we'll obviously touch on the most common questions, and then we'll touch on keto and paleo, and then obviously we'll see how far we can get through it. But if we don't, we'll obviously got something for another day. But the main one is
Perfect.
to talk through the carnivore. So we'll just go through the common questions, which I'm sure will help a lot of people. And then obviously I'll post the video afterwards. And if people have any more comments, they can post on the comments like the last one, which we're still getting a lot of inquiries about
Yes.
menopause, etc., which has been really
Yes.
awesome. So a lot of feedback. So hopefully we can help people again with this one.
Awesome.
So the carnivore diet. So I mean, do you want to maybe just, I don't know, shall I just go through the first question, or do you want to just maybe say something about it first, or how do you want me to do it?
Yeah. So, I suppose let's start by what is the carnivore diet to
Yeah.
begin with. So, the carnivore diet is basically, in a nutshell, meats and fats. That's really what it is. Zero carbs. You're cutting out carbs completely from your diet, and you're just fueling up on a diet that's high in animal proteins and obviously a diet that's high in fats. That's basically it in a nutshell. Similar to the keto, but keto, you are at least allowed a little bit amount of carbs, whereas the carnivore, you cut it out completely.
Okay. And paleo, while we're on that, so what's the difference
So
in the three in a nutshell before we obviously go
yes.
to the
So
questions?
paleo, that really is just a type of diet that people follow. It's also called the stone, I think the stone age diet. So it's a type of way that you're going to eat that's going to be similar to how they ate back in our ancestors' time. So you're basically just cutting out all the processed stuff. You're sticking to unprocessed whole foods, basically.
So basically when I was born.
Yes.
uh,
100% stone age.
yeah, I was before the Stone Age. Cool. All right. So for carnivore, most common questions will. My first one is it really healthy to eat only meat and no vegetables?
Um, when it comes to health, I think that's what is health. That's going to be everybody's own definition of health is going to be different. But if you're asking me what my definition of health is, it wouldn't be a diet of restriction.
Hmm.
So I personally don't think the carnivore diet is very healthy. I don't think we should be cutting out complete food
Yeah.
groups from our day-to-day diets, especially a food group like carbs where you are getting so many beneficial nutrients. So I personally don't think it's very healthy. I'm not saying you don't. I'm not saying there isn't a place for it potentially short term for people who are battling certain digestive issues, but long term, definitely not. It's not something I would recommend.
Hmm. And can the carnivore diet help with fat loss, or is it just a hype?
So any diet can help with
Hmm.
fat loss. It doesn't matter what type of diet you're following. If you're following the law of thermodynamics, you are going to lose fat. That really just boils down to energy balance at the end of the day. So if you're going to follow the carnivore or the keto or whatever, as long as you are in a calorie deficit, basically, you are going to lose fat. So it doesn't matter what diet you do, really.
Hmm.
That comes down to personal preference.
And what are the risks of staying on carnivore long term?
So So long term, like I said, because you're eating a diet that's super high in animal protein, you're going to be getting in a lot of animal fats too. So that's your saturated fats. So, and you don't want to be blasting the saturated fats too much. I mean, that's going to potentially raise your cholesterol levels. That's going to increase your chances of stroke, cardiovascular problems. So yeah, they are definitely health risks. Cutting out fiber, for instance, now you're cutting out
Yeah.
carbohydrates, you're not getting in enough fiber. I mean, that could potentially lead to types of cancers like colon cancer. So definitely long-term risks. I know the hardcore carnivore zealots, if I can call them that, they won't agree with me. But there's absolutely, I'm not saying they might not be in 10, 15 years, but as of right now, there is no evidence backed research, factual evidence backing their claims that it fixes autoimmune diseases and et cetera, stuff like that. I just think it's another craze.
Yeah. I mean, you can't. I mean, surely you can't go without carbs indefinitely. At some point, you need carbs.
Well, 100%. I mean, especially if you're an active
Yeah.
person. So that brings us to our next question. So if you're someone who likes to train, or if you're someone who's pretty active, I mean, you do need a certain amount of carbs to fuel those
Yeah.
activities. You also need fats, but you need glucose
Yeah.
too. So it's definitely not something, I don't think it's I think it's too restrictive. And I don't think it's something that, especially athletes, it's a big no-no for athletes. And I just think it's stupid. I'm sorry, I'm just gonna
Yeah.
come out and say that.
Um, because there's also another question is, why do some people say it clears up skin or autoimmune systems? Like, is there any science behind that?
Well, I do think, like I said, for short-term like short-term solutions. So like people with digestive issues, cutting out carbohydrates, for instance, you're eliminating a whole food group that are potentially do cause potential issues in some people. So like wheat, gluten, stuff like that. So cutting out those things short term will potentially clear up some of those issues, but it doesn't mean you have to cut it out indefinitely. You can then start incorporating things, seeing what you can tolerate, what you can't tolerate, and then taking that kind of approach. But long term, definitely not.
Okay. And what's the difference between carnivore and just eating a high protein diet?
So carnivore, so high protein diet is like what we do. So that's what we advocate too. So high protein, you're just getting in enough protein. That could be from any source, animal, vegan sources, whatever. But the carnivore is the restrictive approach, is where you're cutting out all your carbohydrates too, so zero carbs. Whereas high protein, you're still probably getting in a moderate amount of carbs and fats.
Because the carbs keeps you full as well. So surely if you're just eating protein, I mean, eventually, surely you must still get hungry. I mean, you need to still be like, feel like you full.
Well, that's one of the pros, I think, from carnivore too, is that protein does keep you full, and so does fat. So you find people on carnivore don't actually really get that hungry because they are getting in so much protein, which is very satiating, and they're getting in a lot of fat too, which digests very slowly. So it does keep you full. I will give the diet that. But it's just not sustainable. I don't think it's sustainable, and anything that's not sustainable is not something that I would personally
I
follow.
think people think that because they feel full, they're not going to eat more. So they're thinking if they eat less, they're going to lose
And
more or not put.
that's the thing.
That's why.
That's the thing with and keto too. You're getting a lot of your energy from the fats. So you're going into ketosis and whatever. But what people don't realize is fats are way more calorie dense than protein and carbs.
Yes.
So you don't need to be eating a lot of fats to get to your calorie targets at the end of the day. It's very easy.
Yeah.
So a lot of people that want to go keto or whatever, they're eating a lot of fat and a lot of protein. They're not losing weight. They're actually putting on weight. It's because they are not sticking to an actual calorie target. They're just thinking, oh, I'm just going to smash all these fats and I'm going to lose weight. But that's rarely happens because you're not watching what your calorie consumption at the end of the
You're
day.
eating like less volume, but they're higher in calories. So that's what I.
100%. 100%. I mean, I weighed out 25 grams of macadamia nuts. I thought, oh,
Yeah.
I'll have a little snack. 25 grams of macadamia nuts was almost 200 calories. I was like, oh, sheesh. Like, that was like close. My fat target was almost blown, like
Well,
in
exactly.
one little meal
Exactly. And if you don't track that, you don't realize. You think, oh, I'm just going to have a few handfuls of
of
macadamia nuts.
nuts.
Oh,
Yes.
you track it and you've charged 400 calories. I mean, that's my luck.
100%. 100%. So it's very, very easy to overconsume fats and actually start putting on weight
Wait.
because now you're not tracking your fat
Yeah.
targets.
Um, and can women over 40 benefit from this diet, or will it mess up with their hormones?
I mean, it wouldn't necessarily look, you're cutting out carbs, so you're cutting out fiber, which is very important when you are menopausal. So it's definitely not a diet I would recommend for the ladies who work with us who are going through menopause or whatever. Any diet that is restrictive like that to that degree is not something I
Yeah.
advocate at all.
Because I mean, that's the other question: is fiber really not essential? Because you are cutting out all fiber in that. So surely,
Yes.
you need fiber. I mean,
100%. And the carnivore guys will tell you, no, we don't need fiber. But you just need to go onto PubMed and look at the research yourself and go and Google um, the fiber research papers. I think
mm,
there's over 100
mm,
telling us how important fiber is for us, how much fiber we actually need per day, and we need that fiber to be healthy. So cutting out carbs means cutting out our fiber. That essentially means to me not being healthy.
it
So that's not,
it
yeah, it's
does
not
make me
good.
laugh. Like I was thinking about this the other day. Like it's like somebody just constantly trying to reinvent the wheel. I mean, this has been around for centuries, and people are still trying to find different ways where you don't need fiber, you don't need carbs, and it's
Yes.
just through time after time after time after time. There's always somebody every year trying to prove the theory wrong, but it never, it's just, it's like, fine, go make a triangular wheel and put it on your car. It's gonna be shit. Yeah, just, yeah. Anyway, that's just like where we at, I suppose, in the world at the moment. Um, so yeah, I mean, that's pretty much the most common questions with the carnivore diet. I mean, anything else you want to add to it before we go into the keto?
With the carnivore, no, not really. I mean, you are going to have your hardcore carnivore fans who are going to swear by it. I mean, there's even a few Instagram pages that I found quite interesting, with these carnivore people, and they do look good. And it's always chicks. They're skinny and their face is great, and they're eating freaking slabs of bloody butter, as snacks and whatever. But they're never ever going to tell you the full picture. They're not, first of all, they're not showing you how active they
Yeah,
are. So they're not active people. And I mean, you can't take things that people say on Instagram at face value too. So until there is actual proof and evidence and actual studies, case studies that are
yeah,
being done on the carnivore diet, not YouTube crappy documentaries of your favorite doctor telling me how good carnivore diet is. That doesn't
yeah,
count. Actual evidence-based backed research, then I might change my mind. But as is now, there is
yeah,
none. And I just find it too restrictive. Anything that's that restrictive, red flag.
yeah. Cool. That brings us on to keto.
Yes.
So, yes. So maybe in a nutshell, do you want to just go into like just
Yes.
that?
So similar to carnivore, but different in the fact that now you're getting in some carbs. So between probably like 10% of your total calorie budget will be coming from carbs, and then the rest, like 80% of those calories will be coming from fat. Protein is moderate, so it's not low. It's still like a good within a good range, but now it's just the fats and the carbs, that ratio that's changing a little bit. You are getting in enough fiber, which is a good thing, and you're getting most of your carbs from fruits and veggies and sources like that. So mostly it's under like 50 grams of carbs per
Mm.
day, and I don't hate this diet. I mean, I don't like any particular diet. I think you need to follow something that's sustainable for you
Yeah.
personally long term. I don't hate this diet though. So I do think there's a place for the keto diet, especially in people who aren't very active and who are battling with certain issues. So people battling with things like insulin resistance or PCOS or perimenopause, following this type of approach on your rest days. So maybe you are someone who's active, but following this type of approach on your rest days and eating more of your carbs on the training days, in and around your training days, is a good approach. So I am quite a fan. But again, it needs to be sustainable. So if you're someone who loves eating a lot of carbs and you feel maybe you feel sick on too much fats or whatever, you also need to personalize your diet to suit you and your needs. But I don't hate the keto diet. I do think there's a place for it, and it's a great tool for the correct job.
And because you mentioned there are a few pros, like what are like the cons? Like, because I mean, obviously, it's good for certain people. Like, what other people that probably wouldn't work for? Like, what would be
Well,
the
your active
yeah,
people. So the carbs are just too low to
yeah.
sustain someone who's very active or someone who likes strength or any type of activity, really. Your carbs are just too low, and you will 100% hit a wall eventually. So that is the big con when it comes to, that's the biggest con when it comes to the keto
Because
diet.
again, it's not sustainable. You can't do it year after year after year. People that I've spoken to that obviously have joined OTG, they've been on keto or all these other diets, and there's a shelf life. It's
Mm.
3, 4 months, 6 months, whatever, but they can't do it year after year after year after year. So the minute you stop is when your progress stops. Because now what
Yes, 100%.
problem?
I mean, and you might go into ketosis, so it takes a while to go into actual ketosis, but as soon as you start eating carbs again, then you're out of ketosis. So
Yeah.
it's very quick. So it's not something that I think can be sustained long term too. It's a good tool for like the right day, like I said, in the right context. But not something that I personally could do every single day, especially for how active I am. And a lot of people, all our clients are active to some degree. So it's not something we push, but it is a good, like I said, tool for the right context and the right scenario.
And you mentioned ketosis. So for those that don't know what that is, like maybe just touch on that.
Yes. So that's basically just when your body switches over from using glucose to using fats as its main energy supply. So that's basically ketosis in a nutshell.
Okay. Um, and like, what's the difference between what's the difference between being in a calorie deficit and being in ketosis?
So calorie deficit basically just means eating a little bit less than what you are using up. So you're actually lowering your calories, increasing your energy expenditure. That's basically calorie deficits in a nutshell. And then ketosis, like I said, is when we switch over to using fat as our main fuel supply.
Okay. And another question with keto is, why do I have zero energy on keto even after 2 weeks?
So that comes down to energy supply. So that obviously there might be, also this is context. We don't really know much about this person and what type of activities they do. If they are an active person and they're not getting in enough carbs, they're not fueling themselves optimally. So they are going to hit a wall eventually. If you're someone who's totally inactive, or even like things like Pilates or yoga that isn't too intense,
Yeah.
you could potentially follow a diet like this and use more of the fats as your fuel. But if you know anything about energy systems, you'll know you need a certain amount of carbs
Yeah.
for every single energy system. So that's definitely why that hits a wall.
Okay. Um, and like, why do people lose so much water weight on keto at the start?
So what happens when we cut out carbs is we immediately start and we lose our muscle glycogen. So that's basically just stored carbs in our muscles. And I think it's for every 3 grams of muscle of glycogen, you store like 6 grams of water. So that's quite a bit. So as soon as you cut carbs from your diet, you're going to lose all your muscle glycogen and all that water. So you do lose this like influx of weight, like 3 kgs or something crazy the first week. But that's not fat.
Yes.
That's your precious
Yeah.
muscle glycogen and the water inside your cells. And that is where that weight loss is coming
Which
from.
is why, like you say, the weight on the scale is misleading because you actually are more interested in your body composition. Weight,
Yes.
too many things that fluctuate with weight. It's not, it's,
100%. So they end up looking shit anyway because now they're flat in the gym. They can't get a good pump
yeah.
because they have no bloody muscle glycogen and not enough water in their cells.
And is keto safe long term? Like, you know, well, I think we touched on
Yes,
that. It's
yes. No, it is safe long term as long as you're getting in your fiber targets, you're getting in enough minerals, vitamins, etc., antioxidants. It actually is. It's not dangerous. It's a problem though for when your activity levels start to increase.
okay. And lastly, with keto is keto good for menopause, PCOS, thyroid issues?
It can be 100%. It can be for the right person. So it just depends on that person. Context is very important, but it can be a very useful tool that we use to help those ladies or men, whatever, if they have insulin resistance, lose that body fat so that they can become more insulin sensitive to their carbs. So it is definitely a tool I like to use, but it's never long term.
Yes.
It's a short term tool.
And like you say, context, activity levels, are they active? Are they training? What type of training?
Yes.
All that plays a vital
Very,
role.
very important. Yeah, all of that matters. So context is key. Just because something works for another lady doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for you. But it is something that can be utilized. Absolutely.
And I think that's the problem with a lot of people is they look over their shoulder and see what somebody is doing, what Jeff is doing, or Susan's doing, and think it's going to be the same. But it's
Yes.
different, you know, and that's the thing. A copy and paste doesn't always work.
100%. I mean, I'll just take myself as an example. I mean, I could eat 5 years ago, I could eat 500 grams of carbs and I wouldn't even blink an eyelid. Like it was just like in and out, lekker, body composition was good. Now I have to be so careful with my carbs. I have to manage my carbs. I don't cut my carbs out, but you do need to manage them. Your body changes every single year. The older you get, the things do become different, things shift. So everybody's different. Just because something worked for you 10 years ago doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for you today.
I've just seen somebody comment quickly. Travel with Kerry says, what are your thoughts on women taking 10 milligrams of testosterone a week?
10 milligrams is quite a bit. That's a red flag. I'm all for testosterone for women. I think it can be very complementary to your HRT regime. But 10 milligrams as your starting dose for a woman, I'd be very careful. I think starting doses should start more along the level of about 3 milligrams. Definitely. Also, it depends on your blood work.
Yeah.
So if you are that deficient in testosterone and you need 10 milligrams a week, okay. But I've never heard of a woman who needed that amount on her first week
Yeah.
at 10 milligrams a week. It's always on the lower end of the spectrum, and then potentially titrate that up, but never start at a high dose.
Yes.
Start at the minimum effective dose and then slowly work your way up, but according to your blood work. But I'm all for it. I think a lot of women are deficient in testosterone, and it's not something that people speak about. And it can literally change your life for the
Maybe,
better.
maybe that's another topic we should do in a couple of weeks' time, talk on that, because that's
Yeah,
probably another whole separate discussion, you know?
100%. Testosterone isn't just a men's
Yeah.
hormone, ladies. I mean, we produce testosterone too. We actually produce more testosterone in our bodies than we do estrogen. So it's a very, very, very important hormone. And it's something a lot of doctors, it's like it's taboo. They don't want to give
Yeah.
you testosterone because it's a man's hormone. But in the right dose, in the right context, it can literally change your life for the better and you'll feel like a new human
And
being.
again, it needs to be done with, because most people don't do their bloods. Obviously, you need the right advice, the right guidance,
Yes.
blood works done properly.
100%.
So, like with all of our clients, their blood works are done and sent to you. You make sure everything is spot on. You advise on the right dosage, so everything is done like
Yes.
properly. Yeah.
You don't want to be taking too much because then you run the risks of all those nasty side
Yeah.
effects. So that's why minimum effective dose for what you need without any of those nasty side effects. And you always start with the least amount that you need and then potentially, like I said, titrating that up.
Okay. Cool. All right. So we can just quickly do paleo because we're running out of time. But
Yes.
so maybe just quickly touch on paleo and maybe the pros and cons.
So paleo, I think, got really famous or got really popular when CrossFit hit the scene. That's what I remember anyway. And like I said, it's also known as a Stone Age diet. So it's basically just a diet. They try and like follow the same diet our ancestors did in those days. So it's unprocessed food, um, food from the earth, nothing processed, like even dairy. Like your strict paleo people will cut dairy out of their diets, not all of them, but that's really it in a nutshell. It's actually not terrible, but it's also restrictive to a point. So, but that really is what it is. I don't have a problem with paleo. I think it's great. If that's something you enjoy, then have at it.
And like, um, what's the one question they say? Like, can it help with bloating or gut issues?
It can. I mean, with any type of diet, you're going to follow some type of elimination diet. So, like with the paleo, you are essentially cutting a whole lot of crap out your diet anyway. And just by doing that, you're going to help any type of digestive issue. So, you're cutting out dairy, which is a problem for some people, lactose, you're cutting out gluten, you're cutting out wheat. So you are essentially doing a type of elimination diet, which is going to help potentially clear some digestive issues.
And is it realistic for busy professionals or parents, for example?
The
Yeah.
paleo. It can be. I mean, again, context. I mean,
Yeah.
if you have time to prepare your food like that, I mean, yes, absolutely. But you need to find not everybody though. So if you're busy and you're not going to be able to prep your meals and find the types of food that you need to be eating in this type of diet, then it's not
Yeah.
realistic. You need to find something that you can follow long term and be consistent with.
And find like a routine, because like you say, if it's foods that you just can't get hold of if you're living in the sticks, well, it's not going to work for you, is it?
100%, 100%. So you need to follow your diets that suits you, that suits your lifestyle, that you enjoy.
Yes.
That's the most important one. And that you can do for the rest of your life that you're going to be consistent with. And that's the diet that's going to yield the best results at the end of the day.
Which brings us to, in summary, it's calorie deficit, stick to your deficit, hit your targets, and you'll get results. Doesn't matter how you sugarcoat it, you can slap fancy names on it, but it's all
Yes. Don't cut out the things you love. Like if you love a bloody chocolate every now and then, why am I going to tell you to cut out the thing you love? There's always a way to fit something into your diet that you don't have to be super
yes.
restrictive. You have to follow a diet that you enjoy, that's delicious, that you can do long term and it's sustainable. And that is the diet that you're going to win
And the
with.
difference is all these diets tell you what to do. You need to stick to it, and you can't think for yourself. Whereas, like what we teach people like yourself and Tracy, is rather you have the knowledge. You pick and choose what you want to eat. You play around with the food. You have more freedom and flexibility. And ultimately, you understand what your calories are, what your protein is. And you can, like you say, if you want your chocolate, you know how to fit that in. You don't have to be just told what to do consistently. And eventually, you can't sustain it. You are
Mm.
knowledge is power. If you know how to control and play around with the food yourself, you don't need every year to follow the latest craze and then fall off the wagon.
Yes, 100%. There's so much misinformation out there, and I get it. People are confused. It is confusing, but don't follow the craze. Follow follow science and
Base.
evidence based shit. Yes, that is what works. Obviously, there are going to be things that need to be in moderation. So like your carbs and your fats and if your goal is fat loss at the end of the day, but nothing's out of bounds. You need to work if you do have a coach. And I always recommend working with the coach, even if it's just for a month or 2 or 3 months, just so you can acquire that knowledge so that you know what to do, that you don't need to rely on someone for the rest of your life to tell you what to eat every single day. It really is, it's very beneficial.
It's like riding a bike. You put those training wheels on, you get somebody to guide you, and then eventually you don't need somebody to teach you how to ride a bike all the time. You know,
Yes, 100%.
so get
It's actually not once you understand it, it's like flip. It is actually so easy to understand, and you never need to rely. You don't fall for any more
yeah.
bullshit again, and it's just such an eye opener to you.
It's all marketing,
It
really, basically.
is.
It's
It
all
really is.
marketing.
Most most of these guys that are advocating these crazy diets and whatever, 99% of the time they're trying to sell you something. And if someone's trying to sell you something, like whether it be a special meal plan, follow this for 12 weeks and you'll lose 12 kgs or whatever it might be, that should be the first red
Yeah.
flag. Because, yes, so they're always trying to sell you something.
Cool, Wins. Well, that's awesome. I'm sure this is going to benefit a lot of people. So, like I'll do always, I will post this after we go off. Guys, we'll jump on the next one in a couple of weeks' time. But if you have any comments, just pop them on the post, and myself and Rowan will happily answer any comments that you have. If you've got any more questions regarding this. And if you'd like more information and how we can help you, if you're looking for nutritional guidance, go on my bio. There's a link to the website. If you want a free quote, just click on the link on my bio, and you can obviously see the forms are there. Otherwise, just DM me if you need any help with anything, and we would love to help you. But yeah, Weenie, thank you so much as always. I know people love our chats, so yeah, thank you, and we'll chat soon.
Yes, pleasure. Bye, guys.
Ciao, bye.